Good morning, my name's Helen Russell. I'm the founder and director of the Right Track Consultancy. I'm an apprenticeship and early careers consultant, so I work with businesses to build their pipeline of talent, so apprenticeships or early career programmes, and I'll go through the different types very shortly. I'm here today to kind of start the presentation off, as you can see, to talk a little bit about change management in our younger people and how we manage change through our Gen Z population. Just as a little bit of a recap, because I think it's quite confusing now, and I don't mean to say that the government won't confuse it further going forward when we kind of get to the budget next week, around our different apprenticeship and early careers programmes. So apprenticeships are, as they've always been, it's learning on the job with going to college or your training provider for sort of 1 day a week or 20% off the job training. Earn whilst you learn. They've been around for years. They shouldn't, touch wood, change. We can't see any changes coming around apprenticeships going forward. When we have our university students, we have our graduates, our placements and our interns. So our graduates are those that have come from university, done their degrees, come with you to do a graduate scheme. A graduate scheme can be up to 2 years post-university, so they can go off and go travelling, come back and then complete a graduate schemes with yourselves. An internship tends to be more of that kind of a placement tends to be more of the short term, sort of 6 weeks over the summer, 3-month placement. Previously, you haven't had to pay for that. It's been always down to the business whether they choose to pay for a placement student happening over the summer. The new legislation that's been brought in by the government dictates that actually that student will then be paid for that placement activity that they're undertaking. And an intern is when they come and do a sandwich year through university as part of their university studies. Their internship has to be relevant to their university studies. It can't be something they just enjoy doing as a hobby. They absolutely have to be part of their studies. When it comes to work experience, every student, by the government do dictate that every student between the ages of 15 and 17 should do 1 week work experience as part of their studies. And again, there's a lot around virtual work experience at the moment. So again, they kind of sit at home, they log in, they get some virtual tours, etc. That's not work experience. You know, work experience is being in the workplace, it's being there on time, it's being dressed appropriately, it's making the tea for everybody, and it's actually gaining something tangible when it comes to full-on work experience. A T-level is the difference between an A-level, so it's a technical level qualification. A-levels would be very much kind of happening at college or university or schools or colleges, whereas a T-level happens while they do 1 day a week or they have to do 326 hours of work experience. So it's a technical based level qualification, and then they go to college for the other 3. If you're thinking about taking on a T-level, and I know the local colleges are pushing those quite profusely at the moment, think about actually if you're going to have one student in your workplace 1 day a week, they're going to have to, that task needs to be repetitive in order for them to gain some experience from that. You can't be asking them to do one thing 1 week in one department, so answering the telephone, perhaps working on reception, and then the next week you've kind of put them somewhere totally different, like stores or, goods in, etc., because they're not going to learn. They've got to have value for their qualification as part of that. Yes?
May I quickly add to that? As of yesterday, we've launched our student placement program. So we've got people that will match you up with the various universities in the STC to help you find the ideal placement person that you're looking for, completely free of charge. If you want to know more, get in touch with us. Sorry, Helen.
That's okay, no worries. Our Generation Zs. So our Generation Zs were born between 1997 and our 2012s. I'm a mum to one son who's a Generation Z, and I've also formed a business in terms of managing Generation Zs in terms of coming into businesses and support businesses like yourselves when it comes to managing Generation Zs. There is a perception, and a common perception nationally, that our Generation Zs are quite lazy. They're very used to kind of, you think of a Generation Z, you think of them on their phones, in their bedrooms, lacking communication styles, unable to kind of communicate sort of face to face. They live in a world that is on demand. Yeah, they've never necessarily had to wait for something. If they watch an episode of something that they like on telly, they can download and watch the whole series there and then. They haven't got to wait each week to kind of wait for 9 o'clock on a Friday night, like perhaps we used to, for kind of that next episode of a sitcom or a drama. If they want an album, it's there on Spotify or Apple. They literally kind of just download it. If they're missing a textbook or they want something, for college or school that they've forgotten about, Amazon will deliver it tomorrow. So when it comes to something that actually they can't control and they can't manage, that's when it literally kind of the the world seems to stop for them. And it's how we then kind of take them forward. With our Generation Zs, what I will say is that they do have some unique skill sets that I'm going to go out there quite quickly and say in the room that possibly potentially we don't have, or I certainly don't have, when it comes to IT ability. The amount of time it took me to do an mail merge the other day, actually, if I'd got my son to do it, it'd have been done literally kind of in a couple of hours. But their ability to be able to kind of use technology to do a task and to do that quicker sometimes comes across as they're lazy, because we're used to taking perhaps the longer route, but because they're IT savvy, they're used to databases, they're used to using AI in a positive form, not necessarily using AI just to put out use something off of there in order to then submit it for a qualification or an assignment at college and then kind of get that rejected. We've had a few of those recently. But actually using AI in a positive way in order to make something happen more quickly. They do have different working styles. As I say, they are used to kind of being on in technology. They're not necessarily used to kind of having those communications. If you think that it took a lot for somebody to make a phone call, for us, when we used to think we used to have to ring a landline and you never know who was going to answer, and actually going backwards, if when you picked up the phone at home that's sitting on the side, you didn't know who was on the end. They've never done that. Their mobile phone tells them where people are, it tells them who's on the end of the phone. So communication styles, they're not used to picking up that phone. We've got apprentices that do supply chain chasing for purchase orders, and they just quickly send those emails out. They're not used to picking up the phone and asking people. So it's about how do we adapt those communication styles to work with them better. Excuse me. Our Generation Zs, as we say, really do kind of embrace technology. They love a bit of feedback. If we're not talking to them, they feel that we're not interested in them, which is bizarre because they don't tend to talk to us very often, or very well. But they tend to go, well, actually, so-and-so didn't talk to me, so they're kind of not interested. They love that communication. They want that feedback, and they want to understand what it is that they're doing right, etc., and they're doing wrong. Inclusion and diversity is a real kind of hot topic, especially kind of with our age group that are coming through. If we think, our engineering stats, for example, when we look at the male and female splits, it's not particularly great, in terms of the women that's coming through. And for anyone coming to our skills event that we're going to talk about more later on in November, we talk more about how we're inclusivity, not just around females coming into the industry, but how we talk and think about our LGBTQ community as well, coming into the engineering sector, and how we push that more forward going as we progress. Excuse me. With the Generation Zs, what they're really, really hot on is their own personal values, and they will research a company and see, thank you very much, does their researching around their sustainability, around those green skills, etc., does that work with their own alignment in terms of what they believe in, and is that company sharing their social and moral values? And if it isn't, then they actually at times won't even go for a job there. They won't apply for that. Excuse me. Whereas perhaps for us, we would have kind of gone and got our foot in the door, we'd have gone through a company, done our qualifications, and then actually going forward, we'd have perhaps, progressed somewhere else. They're very much kind of, they'll pick and choose the jobs, etc., that they want to apply for, kind of going forward, because they really believe but stick by their own cultural beliefs. When it comes to managing change within our Generation Z sector, it's about how we communicate and clearing communication with that. I worked as the early careers lead over on the Mercedes Formula One side for 5 years. We had graduates and apprentices, and they used to do a rotation around the business. So our graduates would do 4 6-month rotations, and our placement students would do 2 6-month rotations. And whilst I published the rotation plan and splashed all over it was subject to change in bright red letters, the moment I changed that, they would come en masse and go, oh, I'm not doing that, I'm not changing. I want to go into Formula One, or I want to go into advanced technologies. And it's a case of explain and why we have to change. We knew in Q1, when everyone kind of thought we had our feet up because we weren't racing anymore, all the engine developments, all the parts, etc., that were going out, we weren't just making power units for our own cars, we were making them for our customer teams as well. And at times we needed to push forward with releasing of parts, with getting new parts changes made, etc. And we needed students to come and well, students and permanent employees to come and help us do that. But if we hadn't communicated why we were making that change, what the implications were, and then also how we were going to rectify that change at the end. So 2 weeks, one change, etc. move. They were all very much sort of stuck in terms of, I can't move. I don't want to do that. You've said on the plan, I'm doing this. So that communication aspect with them and trying taking them on that journey in terms of being transparent, providing that clarity and clear communication with them really helped to kind of go, look, it's 2 weeks. We just need you to help and move forward within this period of time. There's always that involvement in the decision-making process with them. So at times it was a case of we have these things that we need to do. What part do you want to do? You need to move for 2 weeks. These are the 5 roles that I've got available that need doing. What is it? So collaborating with them and trying to use their strength, trying to make sure that we're encouraging them to move forward as well in the areas that they feel that they can both add value, and also emphasising what the purpose and the impact of this was. At the end of the day, we were one team, and we needed to make sure that, when the lights went out in Australia or wherever we were going in March, that actually as a team we'd all got there, rather than people kind of going, well, I can't possibly change and I can't possibly do that. A lot of our students now will tell you that they are neurodiverse, they will tell you that they are dyslexic, dyspraxic, they will tell you they have ADHD, etc. Whereas before, people kind of tended to sort of hide behind that because they didn't want to say that they had a condition, because they felt that actually that might stop them from sort of applying for that job or being successful within that actual occupation. Whereas now it does allow us to be able to help them and give them the support that they need in order to be successful. Because actually, if we've given them everything that they need around, for example, dyslexics, if they've got a laptop, they will have software on there that will read the emails back to them in their headphones because they can't necessarily read quick enough. But again, that helps them to be more proactive in the workplace and be able to kind of move forward quicker. So with our Generation Zs, I appreciate that's kind of a really whistle-stop tour, and there's some pieces of paper that's been waved at me from the back of the room now, so I will stop talking. But there is a transition process that we go through, and that we have that realisation that as a younger workforce, they're not necessarily just lazy. It's around how we utilise the skills that they have, and actually how we take them on the journey of change, rather than just assuming that actually we can tell them we don't need you to do this, actually we need you to do that, without explaining the purpose or the impact that that's going to have on the business.